Welcome back. Cutoffs and Coffee, episode 26. Your host, James and CT here. As always, today we have Shane Austin on the podcast. Shane is a former Hawaii and professional football quarterback. Shane took his love and passion for performance on the field and turned it into a passion for the performance off the field on the mental side. Shane is working on an app called Poiz, P-O-I-Z, that you can find right now in the App Store for either Androids or Apples. So we talk more about this. We also talk more about how important it is to have gratitude. We talk about how important mental performance and visualization is for daily performance and for athletes performing on their field. And at the very end of this, which was awesome, Shane takes us through what he calls a game ready. It's basically a 5-minute meditation for any athlete before they get out onto the field or before they get out on to their place to perform. And I think you're really going to enjoy that.
And this episode is brought to you by Underdog Roller 2.0. All right. It has the same great pattern that really gets deep into your muscles, the same crease for your spinal column so that you're not crushing your spine while you're doing your nightly rolling routine. And if you want to roll out a little bit while you're going through your mental performance game ready, you could just throw this down and get mentally locked in to go have a great game. Also, just like the first Underdog roller, you can store your stimulants inside the roller so you can hide them from your training partner. So the next time that you go for that last scoop and you realize it's gone because CT took it because he was hitting big PRs, well, now you have a place to hide it. So Underdog Roller 2.0 coming out in about a month.
If you guys like what we're doing here on Cutoffs and Coffee, you can support us by subscribing to the YouTube channel, subscribe, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and also follow us on our personal social medias. That's where we like to tease out the guests that we're going to have on. That will give you as a listener the opportunity to ask questions to any of the guests that we're going to have on. But without further ado, episode 26, Cutoffs and Coffee with Coach Shane Austin. Welcome back, Cutoffs and Coffee, Coach Shane Austin. What's going on, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've been in a cutoff, but I'm glad to have the excuse to get back into this thing. I mean, this thing's got some memories. That's
nice, isn't it? Yeah, if you're watching the YouTube video, hopefully you are. We have memorabilia from the old 2014 Arena Football League American Conference Championship cutoff Shane is wearing from the Cleveland Gladiators with the helmets in the background, the Philly Soul, and all the footballs and things like that. So you got a pretty good vibe set up out there at home.
Yeah, and a little bit of Christmas stocking. It's that time of year. I'm just trying to make it homey.
And 14 was a great year for cutoffs. I remember that year.
A lot better than 2021 for me, at least. Gosh, I'm looking at myself in the camera. I'm like, 0 tan. I need to get into that sun somehow. But man, my shoulders are just getting smaller. I'm losing weight. Not good weight though. Not the weight you'd like to lose. I'm losing muscle weight. And this might be the longest stretch since I was in high school, or really since I really started training, like since junior year in high school, that I've gone like really without consistently working out. And that's because of my schedule lately. It's just been crazy. I've been all hands on deck with the family-in-law business. You call it family-in-law, I guess, if it's all your family, your in-laws. Anyways, I guess family-in-law is a new term.
That'll work.
And waking up at 4:30, and it's not like I'm just sitting on the couch. I mean, I'm going. Sometimes I look at my Fitbits, like 30,000 steps and 12.9 miles in one day. And I'm like, geez, and I'm just losing muscle. I haven't been in the gym training. So I'm feeling it today because I got back into it yesterday. And man, you guys know more than anybody how you got to build back into it, right? I mean, maybe you guys are so consistent, you never have to build back into it. But I'm back in that phase where, gosh, I've got no muscle. I went straight into squats and man, I'm hurting today. I am hurting.
Let me preface the show by saying this. We will not be talking about training, by the way, on episode 26 of the Cutoffs and Coffee podcast. So if people are listening thinking, oh, Shane Austin is going to drop some knowledge about training, and then the first thing he says is,
I don't train anymore.
In a while. We're going to be talking about the mental performance side and talking about Shane's story. But do you still have a home gym? You just haven't been able to make your way to the garage?
Right. The garage is so far. No, I've been living like half the time at my house and half the time down at our ranch. I kind of feel like, I don't know if you watch Yellowstone, I feel like I'm living on the Dutton Ranch right now. I'm living in the bunkhouse and I'm getting my cowboy life on. But yeah, I haven't had as much gym time. So it's a good thing we're not talking about gym stuff.
Yeah. And how about, let me say real quick, how about the ice bath? You still got the ice bath going, James? Shane was the first guy who I saw get and you can explain it a little more in detail, but a freezer, right, off of like Facebook Marketplace and turn it into an ice bath. You still got that going on?
Chest freezer. I looked up some YouTube videos on how to convert it, basically using some silicone to close up and seal it up. And it's great. Yeah, I got the ice bath going. I still love the Wim Hof method. I didn't go ice bath this morning, but I did do cold shower. So at least we got that going.
Good part of the morning routine, which we'll talk about a little later with some non-negotiables. Hey, tell us, man, something. Tell us as hosts, tell the listeners, as listeners, something that we need to know about you that we can't find from just a quick Google search about Shane Austin.
I don't post gym selfies. I don't have any of those. If you go on my Instagram, you won't see that. Really got nothing to show there right now. What would you not find about me? Karaoke champ 2015. Yeah, got a good partner there in crime out in Cleveland. Me and CT did some work back in the day. Gosh, what else? Love surfing, but I haven't done it in a while. Would love to get back into it, but Rio Grande here in New Mexico doesn't really have that great of waves as they did back in Hawaii and California, but it's all good. Anytime I get back out there, I got to get back on the board.
Yeah, heck yeah. Well, why don't you tell us your story, man? You mentioned California, you mentioned Hawaii. Tell us your story, from coming up, playing football, doing what you were doing as a young boy, making yourself, a big time player at Hawaii, and then in the professional football ranks. Talk us through there, and then talk us to where you got to now and what you got going on with the Poiz app.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, no, getting started. I mean, if you're watching the video version, you probably could tell I'm not the biggest guy, and I never have been. I was always smaller, undersized, just trying to compete. And California is a very competitive state to try to make it as a quarterback. But I was dead set. I had a ton of confidence in my own ability, a very strong belief system, which was nurtured by my father, who happens to be a mental performance coach. He's worked with, ton of professional athletes, Olympic athletes, some of the best athletes in the world. And I really got to be his guinea pig for the mental side of the game because I needed an edge. I didn't have the physical gifts that maybe some people have just in regards to size. I was still quick. I was still, had a quick release. I worked hard. I think that was probably part of the reason why I worked so hard, because I was undersized and I had a little chip on my shoulder and a little bit more ground to cover than some of the guys that, just wake up 6'2" and can just sling it 80 yards. I'm like, okay, I got to do a little bit more. But the mental side really became my edge. And in high school, that's where it really took off, and, I had many coaches, teammates, players, fans, whatever, that would always be kind of in my ear of like, hey man, maybe football is not the right sport for you. Maybe just a different position, maybe try a receiver or something like that. Cause you just don't have the size. And back then it was all about size. Like nobody cared about anything else. If you could get the job done, that didn't matter. If you were 6'3", that's what mattered. And it made me, back then you didn't have the Drew Breeses, the Russell Wilsons, I guess Drew Brees was just now coming into the fold, but like Kyler Murray, like all these little guys that are showing that they can not only win, but they can dominate. There wasn't that. It was the 6'5", 6'3" guys. So I was under that kind of filter. But luckily, and I think coaches
for people listening real quick, what was your size coming up, or still is, I guess?
Gosh, I was probably 5'3" going into high school. I probably left high school 5'7", maybe $190. But no, I was probably 135 going into high school. Like I literally had this is a funny story. We had this like this family we met that we were telling them my size issues. And they're like, hey, if you're 100 pounds by your birthday, and I can't remember how old I was, maybe it was by my like 13th birthday. I don't know. Maybe it was my 18th birthday. Who knows? They're like, we'll give you $1,000. And man, it was only 15 pounds to go, but I was on the seafood diet, anything I could see, I was eating it. And I could not gain a freaking pound. Like I just had, a lot of people would love to have that, I think, that problem. But for me, I could not gain weight. Anyways, we'll fast forward because I'm going real long story here. Strength wasn't I think on the 185 bench test in my junior year, I got it up 1.5 times. So I'm kind of going the Tom Brady NFL draft day type of route here. And was able to, through grit, through mental fortitude, through just getting after it. I was able to book a trip out to Hawaii, get a hold of the coaches. Still, they were like, hey, we don't have any scholarships. We're not gonna, sign any guys anymore. And I just kept kind of getting in there, or kept kind of like, that was where I was set. I was like, I'm going here. And I was able to, I guess, turn some heads, and they gave me an opportunity to walk on. And they said, hey, listen, we've done this with a lot of players. If you walk on here, like, I'll take care of you. And I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship once I got there. And I guess the rest is history. Then I go into my professional career, and that's where me and CT met. Mm-hmm. And that was some good times there in 2014.
So take us back to that journey to Hawaii. We have conversations with athletes all the time about, other players committing, other players going to different schools, that, some teams not talking to them, they're reaching out and things aren't happening. What conversation did young Shane Austin have with himself once he decided he was going to go to Hawaii? What were some of the steps that you took that you said, you know what, this is where I'm going to play. This is what I need to do. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get here. What do those conversations look like between, you and yourself, then maybe you and some of your support system?
Well, I always had that vision. Like, you have to have vision as an athlete. Like, you have to at least be able to see yourself 3-5 years ahead of, where do you see yourself? And I ask that to athletes sometimes, of like, where do you see yourself? And sometimes they have no answers. Sometimes they're like, man, I'm going to be college athlete. I'm going to be in the pros. I had a very clear vision that I was D1 or bust. Like, I'm going to go all in. But what does that take when you have that clear vision? You don't just like, all right, I got it. I'm going to be there. It's going to be handed to me. No, like, you got to do the things that it's going to take to get there. And fortunately, like, I had a good work ethic already. You know what? I'll go back a little bit. This is where the work ethic came into play. Is right. My first time in youth football, wasn't the quarterback. I was just kind of like a backup receiver. And then the very next year, I was with the same coach, same team, and I was going to be the quarterback. And, I was kind of a middle of the pack guy. We did some conditioning drills and stuff in the off season, and he pulled me aside, and I still remember to this day, because it's made such an impression on me. He's like, hey, if you're going to be my quarterback, like, you need to lead every single drill, lead every single conditioning exercise and all that stuff. And there's this light bulb that clicked. And I'm glad it was just a very simple conversation. But I was first in every single running, every single drill, every single thing. I just had this thing about me. But what that taught me was leadership and those qualities that you need isn't always that rah, the vocal kind of person. It's the one who can lead by example. And I never could, ask somebody to do something that I couldn't do myself. So that, like, early on developed that leadership, that character, that drive, that discipline, just in a simple conversation when the coach sat me down. It was a light bulb that clicked. I'm grateful that I had that light bulb click. And then you pair that with the belief system, the mental side that my dad was being able to nurture within me. And gosh, you could not tell me that I wasn't going to make it, and I was going to want to prove you wrong. Right. I had that chip on my shoulder, and, my coach is telling me, hey, you should look to be a receiver or whatever. And I was like, hey, thanks for offering, but in my head, I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. And so once I got set on Hawaii, I really started visualizing even long-term, like visualizing the opponents I was going to be playing in college. And funny enough, like USC happened to be the one that I just kept repping in my head. And it was, but I thought I was wearing Stanford uniform. At that time, I really want to go to Stanford. That was my dream school. I went on a visit there. They were playing USC, Pete Carroll. They were super arrogant. I just started to hate them. I was like, I can't wait to play for Stanford and then play USC. So I started visualizing it. I mean, I'm only a junior or senior at this time in high school. I'm like nowhere near playing them at this time, but I'm already visualizing it. And funny enough, I'm in a different color jersey in Hawaii, and one of my best games was against USC, but I just happened to be playing for Hawaii. So that was another reminder of like, hey, yes, there's short-term benefits of visualization before a game, which I'm sure we'll dive into today, but also the long-term benefits, seeing things like, again, having that vision in advance and seeing even the opponents that you'll be playing in advance just helps kind of create and mold character within and that belief system within.
You spent some time behind Colt Brennan, Heisman Trophy finalist. Is that right?
Yep.
And so you spent a lot of time where you were watching one of the best guys in the country to be able to do it when you were practicing, when he was out there on the field. What did that take for you before James gets into his next question here? What did that take for you? Because again, I just keep thinking I was in similar situations. I know we work with a lot of athletes who are in similar situations where you want to be the guy, you believe you can be the guy. You're sitting on the sideline though, and you're watching the guy performing at a very high level. What do you have to do as an athlete kind of in that second string role, watching, taking those mental reps? What are some of the things that you have to do to be able to make sure that when your number's called, that you're able to go out there and perform against a team like USC?
You first and foremost, you have to have a growth mindset. If you're starting out with a fixed mindset, like, oh man, I'm a backup, and now you identify yourself as a backup or second string, I mean, you're going to set yourself, in that space for possibly a long time. If you have that growth mindset, understanding that everything is an opportunity to somehow grow, whether it's physically, whether you're in the game, getting that experience, which is great. But if you're not, look for ways to grow in other areas. Maybe it's because you're taking those mental reps, you get a different perspective. You're not in the heat of the battle. You're not getting linemen running at you, trying to take you out, and you're trying to get your reads. You're able to watch from the back, from kind of a 30,000 foot elevation, and you're able to kind of see, oh, okay, here's what I would have done here. Here's, and then you can take that and apply that once you do get thrown into the field. So the people that, I see it so often, right? They don't take advantage of the opportunity because they don't think that they're in that starting spot or that spot that they really want to be in. But hey, maybe you need this right now to be able to plug, a different tool into your tool belt, different, so that way you can deploy that arsenal when it really matters. And if you think with that growth mindset that, hey, everything that I do, I'm either getting better or I'm getting worse, like everything I'm doing is adding to my future success, well, then you're not looking at it as, a negative. I even see failures as a win if you learn from it. Right? Every failure is a step in the right direction if you learn from it. If you don't, you're just like, man, and you're just pissed off and you just go make the same mistake, then it truly is a failure. But I see failures as a necessary step towards your growth, but you got to have that growth mindset. So that's kind of the mindset you got to have in those kind of positions.
Now, Shane, you've kind of painted this picture of an underdog story, being undersized, overlooked, struggling, throughout, that initial phase, getting to where you want to be, where you picture yourself, being at Hawaii, and then going on to play professionally. And you just kind of talked about, learning from failure. Were there any failures that you had in your career that made you shift your paradigm in thinking of how you treated sports or mental performance that elevated your game and took it to another level?
Yeah, I could think of a few specific scenarios, but one that just stands out, which was again another light bulb moment for me. I remember I was in practice at Hawaii. It was it was either spring ball or fall ball, but either way, it was high competition. This was like, to get into that starting role, like there's at least three of us that were real contenders at the quarterback position. And obviously, as you guys know, there's only one quarterback that plays. So you don't have a huge margin of error here. And every single rep is under a microscope. Everything is filmed. We go over it freaking 1,000 times in the film study afterwards. So you throw a pick, you got to relive that thing every day. So it was a very high pressure time, and I really had, very small margin for mistake. I really had to be on my game. And I remember one particular practice, it was not a good practice. We've been there, right? Like nothing is clicking, nothing's right working. I'm throwing picks. And my Google Assistant's telling me it's 8 a.m. I appreciate it. I think I'm just going to let her pass right now. She's telling me my schedule for the day. This is my assistant. See, we're working in my office here.
Did she say record Cutoffs and Coffee podcast?
Yeah,
30 minutes ago.
She should.
It's time to start your workday.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry. Hopefully we can cut this out. So I'm sitting there. We have a water break before our last period of the day. And we're going to a team session, which that's where really the most important session is. Did terrible in 7-on-7, did terrible in inside run, did terrible in my individual workouts and all that stuff. And I could have either just chalked it off as a bad day and just like, whatever. I'm pissed off, but it is what it is. But I sat there actually by myself. I took a knee during the water break just to kind of recoup my thoughts. And I thought about using a different tool, a different approach. And it's simple, but it's effective. But just the tool of gratitude. I was just like, you know what? Let me just think of what I'm grateful for right now. I don't know. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, I'm living in paradise, living in Hawaii, get a surf whenever I want, really, which is my second passion. And I'm playing college football, D1 at a high level with a scholarship. I'm like, I'm in a position that so many people would kill to have. And I put that perspective. I'm like, how could I possibly be in a bad mood right now? And it's amazing how gratitude instantly can shift. True gratitude, like not BS gratitude. Like if you're truly grateful for where you're at in this moment, regardless of what level it's at, regardless of how good things might be, there's always somebody who's got it worse off. So it changed that perspective for me. It changed my mindset. It shifted my mood. And once you're in that kind of energy, you allow good things to happen. It's not an instant fix. It's not like guaranteed, now you're always going to have success, but at least now you give yourself a chance. You put yourself in that position. So I used gratitude. I went into that team session and I actually lit it up. I killed it. Now you look back at the full day, it was a so-so day. I had up and down, but I could have just had a terrible day. But I think the bounce back is something that coaches look at more than anybody else. Is how can you respond from failure in that moment, rather than, somebody who's everything's just clicking, everything's just always in the groove. And hey, he's good when things are on. How are you when you're tested? How are you when you're not feeling so good? I think that's truly the testament to somebody's character and mental fortitude.
Dude, that's a great point. One thing we always ask at the very end of the podcast is that people practice gratitude. And it's just for that reason. Because there have been some times in the last few years where a lot of people have been down, and I'm saying the same thing, preaching the same thing you are. Just continue to practice gratitude and be happy for what you have. And you found a way to do it at a time where a lot of people wouldn't have thought that, and that ended up taking you to another level. Is gratitude something that you continue to practice on a daily basis? Is that a thing that, you wake up in a pretty great situation, right? Next to the love of your life, the woman you married, and then you go take care of your baby girl. And I could understand that at times it seems like a lot, kind of like we talked about when we were off air a little bit, but when you really sit down and realize how grateful you are to be in the situation you are, is that something that you think of daily, or is that, something that is kept to kind of the sports side of your life?
Absolutely. It applies daily. It applies to every aspect of life. I think sometimes we need those reminders. We start to slip into complacency and forget about things, start taking things for granted. But the more we can come back to just being grateful for the little things, right? Anything that it is. Like, it's easy to be grateful for the big things, but can you be grateful for your electricity bill, that you got to pay every month? It's like, no, I can't. Well, actually I can, because it's providing me, I can just flip a switch and my light's on. I don't have to go light a lamp to navigate my house in the dark. Like, there's always something to find gratitude in, regardless of what it is, whether it's a struggle, whether it's something, that's obvious. And I think a lot of people think gratitude as the obvious things, but the time we need it the most is the less obvious things, and the times when we're not feeling great, the times when we don't want to be grateful. That's the time when we need it the most. And having a daily practice is absolutely an awesome tool. And that's actually why we, when I coach players and I have players even use our app, I have them start in gratitude. We start every call with wins. Hey, whatever happened in the game last week or last night, there's always something. Doesn't matter how good or bad it felt in the moment. As you know, film never lies, right? It's never as good or as bad as it felt in the moment. But likewise, there's always wins. So I always start with 3 wins before every call. I always start with 3 wins, because there always is something. If you sit there and dig long enough, and sometimes they're a little quiet on the phone because they can't think of anything, and I just wait there in silence, because I'm like, you'll find something. You just gotta take that time to look. And when you take that time to look, you'll find something, and it's going to shift your mindset.
Let's make our way to your professional career a little bit, because you played at a very high level in the Arena Football League. Like, as you mentioned, that's where we had met, played together for a couple of years and did some really good things, and ended up going to China to play and had a great season out there in China. Talk about your transition from college to the professional, there you go, the professional Arena Football League. And then tell us about, how your mental performance and kind of your routines, your pregame routines, continue to build as you continue to play at higher and higher levels of football.
Yeah. So the transition from college to pro, well, it wasn't as severe as the transition from high school to college. I think that's the biggest transition. The guys are just so much bigger, faster, stronger. From college to the arena football, I mean, it's a much faster game, even from the NFL. I mean, I think people like Kurt Warner have attested to that as well. It's like, hey, man, once I went to the NFL after the AFL, things slowed down because it's so much faster in the AFL. That fit my skill set actually perfectly, because I was always get the ball out quick. I always wanted to get the ball out quick. So it was a perfect marriage there. But the mental side is the same rules apply. It's not like I'm going to change what I'm doing now that I'm at the pro level. No, you either double down on the things that are working, but you keep with the process. You trust the process. And it's a process I've been doing since, I was in high school, since I was in Little League. And I had a pregame ritual that I have never gone into a game without. And I still applied it once I got to the pro level. And if anything changed, I actually started coaching once I got to the pro level, and coaching the same stuff that I was using. And the funny thing about that is, you teach something, you learn it at a deeper level, and you understand it a little bit better. And it was funny how that translated to my success on the field as well. Like, that started growing as well. The more I was teaching this stuff, I was really the student, I think, during all this. So that was really cool, just to kind of get an understanding, because once you understand how the mind works and how much impact it really has on your success, man, that is a rabbit hole you can go down for a while, because there's a lot of depth there. And I'm still learning. There's still so much to learn. And I don't think we're ever done learning.
As we're talking about the topic of mental performance and visualization, I think there's a lot of different definitions floating around. What does visualization mean to you, and what does mental performance training look like for you and for your athletes that you coach?
Right. And I have to use this differentiation with a lot of people because it is still a new concept. And I think the buzzword right now is a lot of people are using mindfulness or meditation. And that's really all people think that the mental side is. And the way I, describe it, like, as opposed to maybe sports psychology. I'm not a sports psychologist. I do have a degree in psychology, but clinical psychologists, I feel like there's a lot of good that they do, and there's a lot of overlap there. I from my experience, I haven't noticed athletes really relating to the psychologists that, read things out of a book, as opposed to, an athlete that's walked that walk. They've been in those shoes. They understand what the pressures are like in the game day scenario. And we go off of practices that work because it's just through trial and error. It's not necessarily something that was science backed back in the, when we were doing it. We just knew that it worked. Now the science is, I feel like, just catching up to where people are just saying, oh, that's why it worked. And it's amazing if you dive down that rabbit hole on the science behind the things. But mental performance, for me, it's a proactive approach to like mental readiness rather than maybe meditation or sports psychology, where I feel like a lot of times it's reactive. It's like, hey, what's wrong? Let's add, a protocol or let's give you, something to work on, which is still super beneficial. But I don't feel like you don't have to be screwed up or, in a slump before you can proactively train your mind, just like you train a muscle. I mean, when you go into the gym, you are proactively stressing the muscle to grow it and to become stronger, to become faster. The same is with your mind. The more we push that, train that, and strengthen that, the more that we can rely on that in those crunch time moments. I tell my athletes that I work with, you're developing your trust muscle. It's not a physical muscle. It's not actually there. Or at least I haven't found it yet. But it's,
and you have not developed it yet. We can tell looking at that cutoff.
Hey now, the trust muscle is strong. I will say, right. I will trust that muscle before I trust my physical muscles. But that's something you can rely on when you're in crunch time and the pressure time. If you can't BS yourself. If you've put in the work and time physically, you've put in the work into your technique, and you've put in your work into the mental side. I feel like those are the three areas that really come together in perfect harmony: is the physical side, the technical side. That's like your knowledge of the game, but also like technique of the game. But then the mental side, that's got to be your foundation. When you get those three together, you got a pretty strong trust muscle that just boosts your confidence that way. Hey, pressure hits, crunch time, you're ready to thrive. You can rely on that rather than some people, they fold, they choke under the pressure. They just cave in. They put in all this work, they put in all this time and energy, and it all goes to waste when you just go and choke under pressure. When it really matters, right? That's what matters, is when you get into the game and how you perform. And all that training is to help you perform that. So all I do is to help nurture, hey, I'm not doing the physical side with you. You got to coach for that. I'm not doing the technical side. You got to coach for that. All I want to do is make sure that you don't let all that work go to waste. And you can actually tap into a greater you when it really matters, on the field, on the court, on the track, whatever avenue, whatever sport you're in.
That was a great answer. I do want to talk about that routine that you mentioned. You said you had a routine that you did for a long time and you never went into a game without it. And I'll talk a little bit after this about the routines that have helped me. But let's talk about kind of helping our athletes develop a pregame routine. Like, what are some of the things they need? What are the things that, maybe they want to have? What does that look like when someone's trying to build a good routine that they can use, whether they're going into a game or even if it's like a short-term thing, like a baseball player before he steps up into the batter's box? What do those look like? What do we need in a pre-performance routine?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you just exactly like the three main steps that we use just within our app, because it is part of that routine, and it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be something that you have to just dedicate a ton of time. It can be something that just weaves in naturally to your already established rituals or routines. And the first thing, like when you tap into our app, or if you were to talk to me one-on-one, or when I was talking to my dad one-on-one before a game, so we called this process a game ready. This is how we get game ready. We don't call it that in the app, but that's really what the app is based upon. And the first thing is we check in, and whether that's one-on-one, we check in, how you feeling, we're kind of an emotional check-in, a pregame check-in, because every game is different. Sometimes you're playing against a big time opponent that's going to be a very high challenge, and you're going to have some different anxieties. You're going to have different nerves associated with that. And first and foremost, I mean, one of the things I talk about is nerves are your best friend. That's the first thing I want to address, because a lot of athletes try to stuff those nerves. They try to push them away and think that they're the enemy. And nerves are absolutely your best friend. They help you get focused. They help you dial in when you know how to channel them, when you know how to use them and embrace them, rather than try to shy away from them. But then on the other end of the spectrum, sometimes you're feeling a little bit maybe overconfident or complacent going into a game because, hey, it's an easy opponent, we should win this game. And then you see it time and time again, that people play down to their level of competition, and they don't bring out their A game. So that check-in is really, and if you're doing it by yourself, it's a self-awareness check-in. Hey, where am I at? What am I feeling right now? And a lot of times it's nerves. A lot of times it's, like we just talked about, it's very relaxed, or it's a confident state. What state are you in right now? So then that's what the app does, is you do a little pregame check-in. Then we go, and step 2 is we set clear intentions. And what are intentions? Intentions are a little bit different than goals. So goals are results oriented. Goals are stats. And I'm a big believer in goals in general, because I'm a big goal setter. I believe that our mind is a goal seeking mechanism. And once you set that goal, your mind is going to find a way to get there. But I like to do that long term, like the season goals and stuff, and allow allow yourself to get there throughout the season. But in games, game to game, day to day, game to game, I try to keep it to intentions, because intentions are how you get to those goals. Intentions are the process oriented rather than results oriented. And I believe that's the best state to go into a game, is not worrying about the results. You don't have control all the time about the results, especially in a team sport, right? You have other athletes to deal with. You have an opponent that's literally trying to make you not hit your goals. You have the refs that, who knows if they're going to give you the calls this game. There's so many factors that are out of our control that we try to keep it on game day to the things that are in our control. Intentions, always in our control. It's things like, trust, right? Trust in my ability, trust in my legs. If it's a volleyball player, like trust in my spike, the baseball player, trust in my hands, explode my hips. Maybe it's a little technical thing that you just need to remind yourself of. Breathe, right? Breath is such a powerful tool to help reset you, to help center you. Have fun, right? How many times do we go into a game and we forget that the game is all about having fun? And it's just simply these simple reminders. I never let anybody set more than 3 intentions going into a game, because anything more than that is a distraction. So anywhere between 1 to 3 intentions, that really should be all you're focusing on. In the game, you want to have less thoughts. You've put in the training, all of that goes, back to muscle memory and reactions. Like you got to trust yourself that you'll be able to react. That's why you've trained. You can't think of every little point going into the game. It's just too much to think about. So we narrow it down to 3 intentions. And setting the right intentions. And one last point on intentions is I always frame them in what you want to happen, or what you want to have happen. So you always frame it in the positive. If you use words like don't, not, or never, like don't throw an interception. My mind is now thinking like, just remove the word don't and think of what that sentence is saying. Throw an interception. That's the meat of the focus. You're focusing on what you don't want to happen. So intentions, I always have them focus on what you want to happen. Then the final step. So you got your check-in, then you got your intentions. Now you got your visualization. And that's what I think is the bread and butter. That's where it all comes together. And when you go through that visualization process, you're allowing yourself to be in the environments that you're going to be playing in, right? If it's a stadium with 100,000 people and you've never played in that environment before, you can see it ahead in your head. And experience, I think on game, there's no way to simulate, as CTs from practice. You try to simulate game time scenarios as much as possible, but there's no way to truly simulate a game without being in a game. And the beauty about visualization is you can truly simulate the game. Speed, the environment, the pressure, the emotions that are felt in that game, the failures that you have in a game and how you respond to those failures in a game. That's the beauty of visualization. And you're giving your body a rest, right? You can take more reps without taking the beating of the game. But that's truly the only way to get that game experience without physically getting that game experience, because our subconscious mind, it only acts off of the information that it's fed, the information that it's told. It really doesn't know fact from fantasy. So it's just going off of what you feed it. What you feed will grow, and what you starve will die. So I like to remove the weeds out of our heads, all these negative thoughts and these doubts that are keeping us from our inner greatness. We got to pull those weeds, and we want to water and nurture the things that are going to help us succeed. And that visualization process, going through it, and maybe we'll do one here on this call or something, but or you just tap into the app. But that is, you can't overdo it. I mean, you can't. It's not going to hurt you in any way. It can only help you. And Drew Brees is one that he visualizes it an hour before every single game. I mean, he does an hour visualization. Now, you don't have to do it that long, but it just goes to show that it helps, it works, and it's proven that it works. So that's my 3 steps: check in, intentions, visualization. Honestly, you could do all that within 10 minutes, and that could be part of your ritual.
Now, we've seen a couple videos go viral of coaches talking to their team, and one that I think most people that are probably listening to this podcast have heard talks about the difference between a hard worker and someone who doesn't, and how someone who doesn't work hard and grinds, in the off season isn't going to question if they've worked hard enough. But that hard worker is constantly questioning, have I worked hard enough to get to this point? In that process that you just described, where is, that athlete able to kind of quiet those self-doubt, questioning, did I work hard enough to be prepared for this moment? How has that worked through and talked through in your processes?
So I think that comes into the check-in stage, and it comes down to a little bit of self-awareness, like I mentioned earlier. And that's I think one of the hardest parts to master is the self-awareness, and when you're checking in with yourself. And that's why sometimes it helps to either have a coach work you through that, or have the app work you through that. But for me, it's checking in, with myself ahead of time. It's like, hey, this is where I'm getting that angst, that maybe that gut feeling that I'm not working hard enough, or whatever, the doubt that's creeping in. Let me check in with that. Let me explore it. I kind of always go in with like a curious mindset rather than stuff it down and pretend it's not there. That's what we typically default to, is we're like, oh, just don't listen to it, turn it off. But it's there. It's there, and we know it's there. So why not talk and explore through that with yourself? Why not walk through that process with seeing, investigate a little bit? I'll give you, an example. I was playing Mr. Colin Taylor right here when he was playing for Albany. And that was when I got picked up by the Soul. And I just gotten with a new team. I had my first start the week before, and we lost to a team that hadn't won that year, and we gave them their first win, and we lost by 1 point. And I'm just like, gosh, how do we, this is now some context to this. I've been retired for a year, came out of retirement. So it'd been really 2 years since I played football. And I had some doubts creep in. So that night before that game, we're in Albany in the hotel, I'm doing my game ready process with Willie McGinnis, who CT and I know very well. And I had to check in before I started, and I had to get something off my chest. I was like, hey man, I'm going to be honest. I'm having some doubts just in my ability. I feel like maybe I don't have that anymore. Like I used to be known for my clutch, being able to, buzzer beater moments and being able to win when, the game was on the line and those pressure situations. I was able to pull through, and the team was able to pull through. And it just wasn't clicking that year. I had those same opportunities and I failed. And I'm like, man, maybe I've been too far removed from the game. Maybe I got, some doubts. Everybody has doubts. Those are natural. I think the problem is when we try to pretend they're not there, we try to avoid them and do other techniques to avoid them rather than just address them face on and bring it to the surface. And it just, for me, it was a conversation with a buddy, a trusted teammate of mine. And just by bringing it to the surface and recognizing that it was there and addressing it, almost giving it a name and a title, hey, that's a doubt. It was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders right then and there. I investigated a little bit. Oh, okay. That's just a belief. Doesn't have to be, it's not necessarily an accurate belief, but I realized and recognized that, that's just the belief. That's the story I'm telling myself right now. And once I was able to release that, I felt a lot better going into that game ready. We did our visualization process. We went into the normal routine, and CT doesn't want to hear the end of the story.
Yeah, I know how this ends. Yeah.
Because it ended up being a shootout. Their quarterback threw 10 touchdowns. We couldn't stop him at all. And I had to throw 10 touchdowns just to keep up, but we ended up getting a buzzer beater. There was 0.4 seconds left, and we got the guy in the back of the end zone. And I just looked at CT just to see how just miserable his face looked. In the heart of defeat, it was just, God, it felt good. But I'll go back. I digress. It went back to doing that check-in with myself and, am I being honest with myself? What story am I telling myself? And just addressing it helped relieve that tension.
I appreciate you sharing that story from a vulnerability aspect. I think that our athletes, especially listening to YouTube, if they do a little bit of research on CT, they know he was a dog. If they do a little bit of research on you, they know that you threw a ton of touchdowns. And they don't always associate that with self-doubt. So I really appreciate you sharing that story with us. CT, sorry for the loss, but hey, next year you came back and you got the title. So Joke's on you, Shane.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, after I'm retired, he gets the title. All right.
Yeah,
I'll let him have that.
And James said it when he and I were texting a little bit, Shane, before the show. He said, the touchdown pass is easier to throw when you've already seen it. Right. And that really is what the visualization is doing. And that's a big benefit that I saw, because just a little context, and I'll tell a little story here. When Shane and I met in 2014 in Cleveland, I think game one, I started doing this pregame visualization with you. If not game one, game two. It was pretty soon afterwards. And I don't think there's any coincidence that over the next 4 years, 14, 15, 16, and 17 were my best personal professional football years. And I was very consistent every week doing visualizations with Shane when we were on the same team. We would be on a three-way phone call with his dad. And even when in the last year of that in 2016 was that in 2016
I think when we started going against each other.
Yeah. So it was kind of a funny story. Shane and I were both planning on going to play for another team. And this would be a whole nother podcast in itself. Shane ended up committing. I ended up coming back to Cleveland. And so Shane went out and played in Portland. And a couple weeks into the season, I was still using Shane as my mental performance coach, my visualization coach. So I would call him before the games. We'd figure out, what time our games were. And he would walk me through this game ready, which everybody listening will be able to hear at the end of this episode. So we get to Portland to play against Portland, the team that Shane is the starting quarterback for. And I call Shane before the game when we're both in the locker room. Shane leaves the locker room. I leave the locker room. We're on a phone call, and he walks me through the pregame visualization, visualize yourself beating the defensive back. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see it. Like, if you get on defense, visualize yourself picking off the quarterback. Like, this dude is the quarterback coaching me through this pregame visualization. We go out. It was a heck of a game. We end up winning by, I think, a touchdown. But I have like,
it was overtime.
Oh,
it was over. We literally scored. It was another buzzer beater moment. I'm like, here we go. Yeah. We're going to win. And then we missed the PAT. Yeah. And we go to overtime.
Yes. Right. Well, I end up having like 4 touchdowns in that game, including the game winning receiving touchdown. And, nobody would know, obviously, because it wouldn't be a question anybody would bring up, but it was funny to me and my family and Shane's family, because they all knew that we worked together in that pregame visualization stuff. And it was just so funny to see it come to fruition. And I'm sure the coach now wouldn't have supported that. But my thing, as Shane had mentioned, intentions, right? And we would try our best to come up with things that were really quick, right? And I don't know, you probably have better terminology for that, but before we could run out on the field, you would say something or do something or feel something that would kind of get you in your routine. So my pregame intention, I was just writing it down here, was catch, CATCH. And what that meant to me, it was an acronym, right? So each letter meant a word. So the first C was confidence. The A was awareness. The T was tenacity. The C was consistency. And the H was have fun. So that's what came to me. That's what came easy for me. So like at any time in the game, let's say it was the one time in my career that I actually dropped a pass, I could stop and I would go back in the huddle and think, right. And I would think, okay, catch, like, just relax. You got it. Right. Or we'd go out on the field, or it'd be 4th down, or it would be the overtime. Right. And I would say catch. And that was easy for me because I could go right back to the same feeling that I was feeling when I was confident, when I was on the phone with Shane doing the pregame visualization stuff. So, we talk about, and that's why I asked Shane about the routine, because I want athletes to understand that there are ways to do it. There are ways to go about it, but you can also make it as much to yourself and make it as individualized as possible. So that's my little.
Well, and that's what really counts. It doesn't matter what I tell you or what CT tells you or what James tells you. It's really what works for you. And that's only you're going to really know that. And the thing that's so beautiful about catch, even outside of the acronym, you get back to the simplicity of what is your number one job. Like it's catch. I mean, there's so many other things. You got to run the route. You got to get open. You got to sometimes block, which we hardly did at Cleveland, but you got to, at the end of the day, if you're not catching the ball, like, you're not going to play receiver for very long. And I think a lot of people try to overcomplicate. The further they get in, the more competition, the more pressure that builds. You try to overcomplicate, but in the game, it's all about simplicity. It's all about, how do I keep it simple? And we had a motto that 2014 season, it was 1-0. As cheesy and as cliche as that is, it freaking worked because it was a simple focus. It was one simple focus that was manageable. It wasn't over. Hey, we're going 17-0 this year, 18-0. Like, that's overwhelming. But 1-0, I could do 1-0. I don't care what just happened the last game. I think we could win this game or this play, even if it's just down to this moment. Like, that's all that matters. You just dropped the last pass. That's over. If you learn from it, whatever. But right now, I could catch this next ball. Like, that's what I love about that intention. Is so simple. Catch. It's the simplicity of your sport. Yeah.
We, people who are just now getting into this also have to understand, I think this is important, because this was a problem I have, is it takes reps, just like anything, right? When we do this game ready with Shane at the end of this, it's not going to be the best version of the game ready that we could have, James and I as individuals, or that even coach that you could have when you're delivering it. But athletes need to understand that you will get better. Be consistent with it. You will get better. I remember my second year of doing it, I actually interrupted our coach at the time when he was giving the the visualization talk on the cell phone. And I said, man, I'm nervous. I'm sweating. There's something going on. Like as we're having this conversation, I said, is that bad? Like, I feel like 24 hours before kickoff, I shouldn't feel this way. And I remember him saying, no, that means you're actually like getting deeper into the visualization, because now you can see the other players on the field. Now you can feel the sweat on your arms. Now you can, breathe deep enough, just like you would on the field, because you're exhausted after running routes. And I finally got there. It took me 1.5 or 2 years, but I finally got there. I was able to see faces in the crowd. I was able to see, the players I was going against and the people in the huddle. So just understand, people who are going to get into it, hopefully get into it because of this conversation, just understand it's going to take reps. And just like anything, you need to be really consistent with it before you start getting, all the best benefits of it.
It's called visualization, but it's not just visual. Like you're explaining there, it's all the senses. And the more you can tap into, I mean, the clinical term is like mental imagery. And yes, there is the images that you're putting in your head, but it's also the emotions that are felt. You can feel the turf below your cleats, if that's the sport you're in, or the court. You can, hear the sounds. You can, if you want, smell the hot dogs cooking in the stands. Like, the more senses you bring into it, the more real it becomes. And again, your mind doesn't know fact from fantasy. You've already played that game. You've already gone out there. You were literally in that game with those same nerves that are associated, because those nerves are going to be there in game day, right? Why not process them from a safe place, from your bed or your seat, wherever you're at, and see how you work through that in a safe scenario, and then go apply that in the real thing.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Let's, I would love to get into hearing about the app. Cause we've teased it a little bit. Shane, you've mentioned the app a couple of times. And this is an awesome thing for our listeners to get, and then eventually see further down the road where it goes. But tell us about your position with the Poiz app and what that looks like, and some of the benefits that our athletes can get out of it. And then let's transition into talking about, working with K-State.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The app was really born and developed because, one, I wanted to be able to give this process and this game day ritual to more people. And I was doing a lot of individual coaching, some team coaching, but again, you're only limited to what my time availability is in a single day, and how can I reach more people? And my brother and I partnered up to be able to create a digital platform that can be more accessible, right? It's more accessible, it's more affordable. More people can access the same benefits, rather than having to book a one-on-one time with me or with my dad or any mental coach for that matter. It lives with you in your pocket, and you can use it and deploy it anytime you want. So that was kind of the genesis of the project. And right now it's in a beta stage. It's technically, it's on the App Store if you wanted to download it right now. But we're literally, right after we get off this call, I'm meeting with the developer, and we're doing a big overhaul to add some more bells and whistles, and to make it really more user-friendly or standalone. Because right now I've been using it with the people that I'm working with, and it takes some explanation, because a lot of people, it's like, well, what is this? Right off the bat, if you've never been exposed to this, you might be a little confused. If you've listened to this podcast, you have a little bit better understanding. So you'd have an idea of what those steps are going into it. So yeah, feel free, go into the App Store if you want, and download Poiz, Poiz, or go to the website, getpoiz.com. So GETPOIZ. And that'll probably be the best place to go, because depending on when you listen to this podcast or wherever we're at in the stage, maybe it's already overhauled by then, and maybe you can actually try out the new version. That's where we'll place the, any updates on the app. But yeah, feel free, give it a try right now. But that process, it's arguably, like, some of the people that have been using it in this early beta phase actually enjoy it better than just a one-on-one with me, because it brings in the immersive sounds. It brings in some music, just to get you into that state, into that, into that right frequency, than just me telling CT to pick off the quarterback when I'm the quarterback.
Well, I was going to say, that's when I started using it after we did enough to where we were playing against each other. And it was like, okay, this is enough. I'm going to stop giving him, this fuel. That's when I took the app and started using the app for anybody who, is wondering if, if I've taken any reps with it. And I really enjoyed it. And I think people would get a lot from it. So continue there about getpoiz.com. Right.
But that is, again, I'll say like the beta version of it that's currently in the App Store, like, yeah, like you knew how to do it. You had already been doing it. And that's been the perfect case scenario for people right now is like, hey, I already know how to do it. I'll just use the app now. I don't even need you. If it's a first time person, never been, done it before, you might have some questions. So feel free to reach out to either CT or even myself. There's even a feedback button within the app if you have questions or anything like that, because there's a lot of depth to it, and there's a lot of more bells and whistles we'll be adding to it when we overhaul this thing. But it's free right now.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. It's free, so give it a shot. Shane, I do have a couple just kind of like random rapid fire questions that I want to ask you, but I also want to make sure that we get in and we're able to do this, like 5-minute game ready. I think that would be
Sure.
be really cool. So we'll just kind of knock these out real quick and, answer them as quickly as you would like. And then we'll get into, the game ready and we'll wrap up. So, first thing we talked about a little bit, non-negotiables. Do you have any non-negotiables that you have throughout the day that help you, kind of finish the day on a high?
No, I'm a pretty good negotiator, so I negotiate with myself a lot. No, when it comes down to non-negotiables, well, that's coffee, maybe cutoffs. Okay. Now we'll see. But no, when you're trying to create a habit of non-negotiable, pair it with something else that's a non-negotiable, like brushing your teeth or something, right? Like a morning routine. For me, I mean, we talked about it. The gratitude is something that I always have to remind myself, and it is so easy, even though I do it so often, it's easy to just forget about it and start taking things for granted, even the little things. Like right now, I'm able to walk and I'm healthy, right? I'm able to pick up my daughter, and gosh, there's a lot of people that can't do that. Mm-hmm. And it's constantly reminding yourself, grounding yourself in that. So that would be a non-negotiable for me. Gosh, what else? What is your non-negotiables? Am I allowed to ask you questions? I need like an example right now.
We don't got enough time for that. We got to get you to your,
okay.
To your meeting.
All right.
How about, so I got the question from Instagram. I thought this was really interesting. A coach working with an athlete who is, seems to be unmotivated, even like to the point of where they're he used the word depressed. So, just like showing kind of signs of being depressed at the time. What are some steps that we can take as coaches to be able to maybe help that athlete through and get some level of motivation from the performance, the mental side, as opposed to from the physical side? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a deep one, because you really, it could be case by case with somebody. That one I don't want to fully unpack, because it could be different from person to person. But in general, I mean, a burnout or depression or apathy, I mean, comes from a lack of passion into what you're doing. And first, you got to find out where that stems from, right? Is it because you're just constantly getting berated with just work in this very specialized position or something like that? For me, I mean, I like to tell my athletes, like if I'm working with a quarterback, I don't want to create a robotic quarterback. I don't want them to just do quarterback specific drills. I want to switch it up. I want to throw them out at receiver, go out at DB, just be an overall athlete. And it changes your joy for the game. You gotta enjoy what you do. If you don't, you're not going to get the best out of yourself. If you're just told what to do and forced into something. I'm not a motivator. Like I can't motivate you to do something, that you should internally be motivated. When you don't have that internal motivation, there's a disconnect with where your passion lies and where your joy lies. If you can get back to finding what still fires you up, what still is something that you enjoy within your sport, and do that, once you can establish that joy again, maybe repurpose your goals a little bit. Maybe your goals are a little bit out of whack with really what's in alignment with you. Once you get back to that alignment, that's when you have that internal motivation, that internal drive, that fire is lit within you again. But it just comes back to having fun in your sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. Two more, then we'll get into the game ready. So, you had mentioned 2015 karaoke champion. You know, you can Google that if you need to. You can YouTube that if you need to. Shane Austin, CT 2015 karaoke. But do you have any new now in 21? Any new 2021 go-to karaoke songs?
Oh, there we go. Go-to karaoke songs. Gosh, I got the guitar right here. I'm trying to think of what I've learned. I've gone more country. I definitely like some country jams on the old guitar. So I'd say there's some, would they be karaoke worthy though? I still go back to you know what? How about we'll go away from country. We'll go to Get Low by Lil Jon.
Oh, there you go.
I've gone back to that one recently and won a little talent show with that, but that was strictly acoustic, totally different version, which CT, I know CT knows that version.
We know that one. Yeah.
We performed that one in China, actually, to a crowd of people that don't speak English. That was fun.
Another great story. So Shane, we always wrap up, and again, we'll do this and we'll go through the game ready. We always wrap up asking our guests what they think we're missing in the strength and conditioning industry. I think more of the question for you is, you know, what are we missing between Coach James and I working on the physical side of performance and you working on the mental side of performance? What do you think we're missing to maybe help us bridge the gap a little more that could help people understand the benefits of the mental side as well as the physical?
Well, that's actually something we're exploring within the app is training protocols that actually go hand in hand with your training, your physical training, because, you know, there's one thing to get game day prepared, competition ready, but there's another thing to get, you know, training ready. And there's some protocols we're implementing into this version of the app or the next version of the app that will get you just a quick little dial in into a training session, whether you're going in to set a new PR or whatever. I think there's so much more mental that aids the physical. Like, you know, when you're feeling good and you have that supreme confidence, it's not whether or not I'm going to lift this weight up. I'm going to lift this weight up. And there's a different energy in there. And if you can tap into that, I mean, you hear stories of the mama bears that, you know, their kid is trapped under a car and they can lift an entire car. Like, you have the strength within. It's a matter of tapping into that. That's something we're exploring, and it's to bridge that gap. And I'd say right now, just starting off with the visualization, visualize yourself hitting that rep and do that process, even if it's 2 minutes before you go while you're foam rolling, you can just get dialed in. The more you set yourself up, you know, mentally, the more that physical side will follow, in my opinion.
Man, some great points. Shane, where can people find you on social media?
Social media, at Shane Austin 10, pretty much all of them except TikTok. Not quite active on there quite yet. I think it's just showing my age. Or just Shane at getpoiz.com if you wanted to email me any questions or anything like that. Or getpoiz.com. That's really the best place to go and contact me. There you go.
Well, hey, thanks so much to everybody for listening. We will, like we mentioned, we're gonna wrap up with the game ready, but before we get into that, and I figure we'll do the game ready, and then James and I'll be hyped to run through a wall, and then we'll just kind of fade the episode out. But this has been episode 26 with my man Shane Austin. Remember, if you're listening, to continue to practice gratitude, tell your loved ones that you love them, and live life stimulated. You only got one life, might as well live it stimulated. All right, we're gonna get this game ready, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then after this, we'll fade out. Again, thank you guys for listening. I'm gonna go on mute so I can really get into this. James will do the same thing. Shane, wrap us up here. A couple minutes. People enjoy this game ready. They can listen to this. This is a preview kind of to get into the app. And this is some stuff that we used to do to be able to get ready to perform at our highest level. So thank you everybody for listening. Shane, get us into this game ready, man. And then we'll let you go do the rest of the stuff that you need to do today. So thanks again, everybody. This has been Cutoffs and Coffee, episode 26. We'll see y'all next time.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, and appreciate you having me on the show. I guess for this game ready, we'll keep it generic because I don't know what sport we're dressing. It can be all sports, right? So in the app, it's a little bit more sport specific, but right now we'll just keep it general. So first off, just take a moment wherever you're at, whether you're sitting, whether you're laying down in your bed, get comfortable, and take a moment and just tap into breathing. Just big, deep breaths. There's a lot of different breathing techniques out there, but right now we'll just keep it simple. In through the nose, out through the mouth, and start kind of relaxing that body, centering yourself. And with each inhale, breathe in those things that strengthen you, breathe in the things that lift you up, things that nurture you. With each out breath, breathe out anything that doesn't serve you, any of those doubts, those negative thoughts, those weeds that have been festering in your mind, like we all have. Let that go. Just release it with each out breath. And with your next out breath, just if you're not already, gently close your eyes. Once you have those eyes closed, I want you to just right now see a gate. Any kind of gate. It can be made out of wood. It can be made out of metal. It's whatever kind of gate you want to see. And it can have your name on it. It can have whatever you want. You design it the way you want. But the main thing is you see this gate that's once closed, see it open up. And as that gate opens up, walk yourself through that gate. And as you walk through that gate, I want you to step into a place of nature. This is a place that you've either been to before. It's a place that you'd love to go to, or it's a completely made up place. You're the architect of this place, but it's full of nature. It's full of beauty. And as you walk through this place, start to notice and take in all the senses, the colors that this place has. If there's green plants, or if there's colorful flowers, or even the surface that you're walking on, whether it's sand, whether it's grass, start to feel that below your toes. If you look up, if there's some birds chirping, you see some birds fly overhead, whatever noise and sounds that this place has and it's associated with this place, start to feel that. If there's waves crashing on the shore, if there's a breeze going through the trees or through a meadow, whatever this place has, tap into those senses right now and breathe in that beauty. Take it in, breathe it in through your nose. Enjoy that this place, the gifts that this place has to offer. Feel grounded in this place. And allow greater strength from within you to just surface. You've got that strength. You've got that power. You've got that confidence. And it's a supreme confidence. It's a fire within. As you breathe in the beauty around you, you're building in that confidence, that steadiness, that vision, and you feel level-headed. You feel ready to take on anything. Now see another gate that this place has. Walk over to it and walk through this gate. Now you're on your game day surface. You're on your competitive surface, whether that's a field, a court, a track, whatever it is that your game day is, your game day setting is. If it's a stadium, even if it's the back of a parking lot, whatever it is, put yourself into that spot right now, whether it's coming out of the tunnel. Feel the surface below you. Again, hear the sounds around you. If there's people, chattering, if there's, balls dribbling on the ground, or whatever the sounds that this place has, bring in that sense. Start to associate that, the game day vibe, the game day environment. See yourself go through your warm-ups. Everybody has their normal warm-ups that they go through, their routine. See yourself going through it. Your legs are feeling good. You're feeling loose. Whatever sport you're in, you're going through those reps just to get feeling good, and you're feeling awesome right now. Now see, as the game begins, see how you start that game, starting with conviction, starting with confidence, starting right here now in this moment. Nothing else matters but this moment, this play, this opportunity. See yourself start with a bang. Start with a presence. Tap into whatever intentions you have set. See yourself playing lights out. whatever techniques you've been working on, whatever things that are your strengths. See yourself lean into those strengths. See yourself perform at a high level at whatever sport you play. And as we know, not everything goes perfect in games. See some type of challenge. See some type of opportunity to overcome, whether it's adversity, whether it's a failure in this moment. We've talked about that today. How you overcome that. Associate the feelings, hey, it might suck in that moment, but hey, it's a new moment right now. Right now could be the best play of the game. It could be the play that changes the course of the game, that pivots you guys in the right direction, that gets the momentum back into your corner, and you're ready for it because you're here in this moment. See yourself make that play. See yourself respond with confidence, with authority, with conviction. That feels good. You're able to light up the rest of your team, whether even if it's an individual sport, you still have some type of team, whether it's your family, whether it's your training staff, but everybody is energetically with you in this moment, and it feels good. You're able to overcome. You're able to persevere in the face of pressure, in the face of adversity. See another pivotal moment in this game, in this competition. This is the moment it's can make or break the game. See yourself completely poised in this moment, keeping it simple, just doing what you know how to do, doing your job at a very high level, and then see yourself perform it and succeed. See yourself make that pivotal moment, that play, and make it count. And now you can walk off that field, that court, that playing surface, wherever you're competing at. You can walk off with confidence knowing that you left it all out there. You put everything you had in this. You brought your passion. You brought your A game. And it doesn't ever have to be perfect. It can sometimes be messy, but you got the job done. And you can be proud of that as you walk off confidently. Walk back through your gate. Walk back into this place of nature. This place where you can just be at ease, you can be at peace, you can relax after a hard-fought battle. This is where you come to restore your energy. Feel that sun just resonating within your body. It's just, you can feel it on your skin. It gives you that energy. It energizes you. Find some flowing water, whether it's a river, a stream, a fountain. Take some crystal clear water, splash it on your face. It's a little cool to the touch, but it lifts you up. It rejuvenates you. Drink from it. And as you drink from it, it gives you that strength. It gives you that nourishment. It completely revitalizes you. You feel ready to take on anything. You'll feel cool, calm, collected, unstoppable. With that confidence, with that strength, walk out towards that first original gate that we originally walked through. Walk out that gate and open your eyes. You guys are game ready, and I hope you run through a wall now.
Okay, thanks so much, bro.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. This is fun.